Hello, girls and boys and everyone. We have the official routine maintenance updates patch notes for what we are getting later today or later tonight or tomorrow. I mean, it's going to be 5 hours and a half, so chances are we might be sleeping or just busy while this happens. But essentially, we have the information regarding what's coming up. I'm not gonna go over the story again because I did a whole ass video on that, but I do want to go over specifically what we have for the characters, because that's essentially the new stuff, right? Let me see if there's anything else that was not announced before. Goodbye Freedom minigame. Oh, there's a little bit more information regarding the minigame that's happening. I'm not gonna talk about the the battle guide events and all of that. You know how it works. But here, for the minigame specifically, this has some interesting things here that is necessary to know, especially if you're playing on phone. You can play the survival action minigame Pandora Escape, which is the survivor action game. Pandora Escape can only be played in landscape mode. Defeat the approaching monsters to earn XP and strengthen your skills. Characters can use their unique ultimate abilities, tap the ultimate ability icon in the lower right corner to survive in critical situations. The game is over when your HP reaches 0. Defeating elite monsters will drop elite box items, which may randomly grant you skill cards. If you meet the weapon evolution requirements, you can obtain the evolved weapon with a 100% chance. When an elite box drops, a circular effect of an arrow will appear beneath your character's feet, blah 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 blah. Playing through this minigame will get you some net coins, which you can use to upgrade your character stats. So as far as I know, we will start the minigame with only 2 characters. Well, the minigame will have 2 characters. The first character that we'll be able to play is going to be Levia, and then 3 weeks into the event, we'll be able to also play Levencia. I believe those are the only 2 characters coming up, but yeah, so pretty cool. Now moving on, there's some information regarding the new boss, Talos Wind. Anything that money can buy gathers in Pandora City. A huge bronze giant of an unknown origin was one that gathered in the city. A rich man purchased it from an unknown merchant. The bronze giant was gently engraved with the language of an unknown origin. The unknown language piqued the interest of this rich man. However, his efforts to translate the text were futile. In the end, he could only decipher one word, Talos. The moment someone said the deciphered words out loud, a terrible disaster began for the city. There we go. Now we have the shop. This is the classic stuff. We are getting some UR gear, Tears of the Goddess, some draw tickets, ancient crystal refining stuff, all of that good as per usual. Don't forget to grab those. We are getting some bonus costumes. These are the costumes that will get you more rewards by doing your dailies in the events. So, you know, it's essentially the one that are like present for the event. So it's going to be Celebrity Bunny Loen, which is a new one. Overheat Levia, which is also a new one. Daydream Bunny Morphea, which is the free one. And finally, the rerun for Adventure of the Unknown Diana. Now, we have... I'm not going to go over this. This is essentially just the schedule that we already know about. What I really want to talk about is going to be the changes to the characters. Because they are buffing some previous characters that are deemed not strong enough to fulfill their intended role. So, as you can see here, we have Gentlemaid Anastasia, and she is getting an update to her skill text, which will increase her crit damage. So there we go. I don't have on paper the difference, but you can see that. Now here for Fire Graffiti Anastasia, you can see that at +0, her cooldown goes from 5 to 3, and obviously there's the number damage, the damage numbers being changed, so pause if you want to check that. Lovely Lady Elise is also getting buffed. Here, codename O Elise is getting buffed as well, increased the damage potential from 75 to 100%, which is awesome. Here for Neon Savior Angelica, her HP base limit increase goes from 20k to 30k. And to explain this, essentially, she deals magic damage to enemy based on her max HP. And before, it would only count 5%. Before it would only count her max HP up to 20k. Now it's going to scale up to 30k. So if your Neon Savior Angelica has 30k HP, she will deal crazy amount of damage thanks to that. Now finally, we have Pool Party Angelica here. There's no changes for her skill, but she's getting the same treatment in terms of HP scaling that Neon Savior Angelica is getting, so that makes sense, right? There it is. Now moving on. The full Angelica is getting the same stuff. Essentially, every single Angelica is getting that increase to HP ratio. And then she's getting some damage increase. Disciplined Community Glacier is getting some damage increase. Now, Demon's Daughter Seer, that's something I was very interested about. And essentially, at plus 0 SP, her cost... at plus 0, our SP cost goes from 4 to 3, which means that the final SP consumption, including the potential, will be 1 SP, which is very, very nice. You have great potential to actually reduce the amount of SP she cost by quite a large margin. Snow White Ventana is getting damage increase, same for Sage of Blue Cloud Olstein. And finally, Killer Doll Leclaise. This is the one I was most excited about because all of her ability costs so much SP. And here we finally know a plus 0 SP cost goes from 6 to 4, which means that with potential and skill stuff, it can cost 1 SP, which is fantastic news. Now, moving on from that, we finally have the information regarding what exactly the new costume are going to be doing. And first and foremost, we're going to check Loen. So Loen here, she has a target skip. The range is a 3x3 square. The main target is going to be the middle one. That means that if there's 2 targets, one after another, it will skip the first one, hit the second one as the center of the square, which will mean that even the first one she skipped will still get hit, for example. So very cool. Now, SP cost, absolutely insane. 7 SP cost, that's very, very high. The cooldown is 9 turn. Deal magic damage to the enemy base on 50% of your magic attack. Damage dealt additional increase by 75% per target being attacked. So, essentially this means that the more enemy there are, or the more parts you can hit, I think, will increase the amount of damage you can do. This seems to be tailor-made for bosses that have like a lot of parts congregated in the same place, and also in those kind of bosses you tend to be getting a lot of SP back, so in those situations this might be pretty good. But apart from that, I think the SP cost and the cooldown is so big, I'm not sure how good this is gonna be. I have my reservation here, but who knows. Now, if we move forward at plus 1, the SP cost drops by 1, which is something. I assume we're going to get some -2 cooldown from the skill potential, as well as an SP cost reduction, an additional one, so I could see the SP going to 5 and the cooldown going to 7, but even then, that's going to be a tough cookie. Now, at plus 2, we are getting the damage dealt additionally increasing up to 95% instead of 25, so we're getting a 20% buff to that, which means that essentially, if you hit one target, it's going to be 50% damage. Now, if you hit the maximum on the target, which is going to be a total of 9, suddenly that is going to be a 95 times 8. 95 times 8, that's going to be 950, about 700% additional damage, which is insane. Now, moving on, we can see this increase to 115%, 135%, and finally 155%. So the potential is huge for a kind of massive burst at the start of a fight. Now, it's very costly, the cooldown is very low, so it's not something that you can expect to use many times during the same fight. Now, moving on, we actually have the skill potential here, and we got absolutely bamboozled. The damage based on the number of target hit is increased by 10%, and 10%, which is a total of 20%, for a maximum at plus 5 of 175%. Now, the skill range increases from a 3x3 square into a whole ass, like, losange, I guess, by getting a little bit more range. Now, I think this is gonna be nice if you're hitting targets on the side of the grid, because that gives you 3 square, 1 square and then 2 on the side or backward, which means that you are more likely to be getting the opposite enemy. So pretty nice, but we're not getting any SP reduction or cooldown reduction. Now, moving on, her weapon is here, whatever. Now, Overheat Levia, one of the characters I'm most excited for. Okay, so she's a skip target, same AoE as before. SP is 5, cooldown 3 turn, deal magic damage to the enemy based on 300% of your magic attack. The enemy is under the stat weakening effect. Deal magic damage based on 450% of your magic attack instead. Remove weakening from the target. So essentially, you are going to need to place the enemy in a stat weakening effect, which will allow Overheat Levia to be doing massive amount of damage. I assume that some of the other costumes from Levia are able to place a stat weakening effect on the enemy. Otherwise, she's going to need to pair up with a costume that can do that. I'm sure we're gonna find some nice team composition for those. Now, at +1, the SP consumption drops by 1 to 4. +2, the damage, the base damage is 275. What is interesting here, in my opinion, is that the base damage increase, but not the damage that you deal if the enemy is in a stat weakening effect. And I think the problem here is that I feel like most likely every time you use this ability, you want to use it on a stat weakening suffering enemy, if that makes any sense. And because this will not actually increase, because this is not a 275 plus 450, this becomes 450. So if you want to get upgrades for her, either stop at +1 or go all the way to +3. Because stopping at +2 is literally going to be useless, because in most circumstances you are going to want to get the stronger damage, which here doesn't change. So that's why at +3 you get a 600, that's way better. +4, I think it's the same thing, don't stop there. If you want to get +4, make sure you get +5, otherwise this is useless. But getting up to 750% is quite a significant amount of damage. Now obviously, the caveat here is that it is an AoE, so when you're hitting AoE, you are gonna hit potentially enemies that are not stat weakened. So in those circumstances, that's gonna be better, but obviously you wanna take maximum benefit from the debuff that they're gonna have. Alright, now in terms of skill potential, damage increased by 50% when in vulnerability. This is a typo, this is in a weakening state. So essentially, the damage will increase up to 850% when enemies are stat weakened. And finally, the cooldown can be reduced by 2 turns, which means it will only have a 1-turn cooldown, which will allow the spell to be spammable. Moving on to Nightmare Bunny Eclipse. This is a rerun, so we're not going to stop on this one for long. Same for this girl here. And we have information regarding the Daydream Bunny Morphea. Now, Morphea is most likely going to be a summoner. So here we have a skip, range, self, use allied zone, summon to create 1 bunny specter. So this is from +0 to +5, the cost is 4 SP, the cooldown is 5 turn. Okay, so essentially, what this means is that the spell doesn't change regardless of +0 to +5. So by getting copies of Daydream Bunny Morphea, it's going to increase the damage or whatever that the summon does. And this is what the summon does. So the summon is going to target the very frontmost enemy. The AoE is self and everything around. Okay, so target and everything around. What's kind of weird is that... oh, sorry, I bumped the mic. I don't know why it's very front, but the middle of the AoE... Oh, yeah, that will hit people diagonally on the side, so that's pretty good. Okay, so self-destruct to deal magic damage equal to 150% of your magic attack to the enemy. The self-destruct attack cannot be evaded. Oh, wow, that's good. Additionally, for 4 turns, the enemy magic resistance is reduced by 30%. So this is a big AoE plus a defense like a magic red shred. That is quite significant. At +1, the damage increased to 230, 310 at +2, 390 at +3, 470 at +4, and finally 550 at +5, which means that the maximum amount of magic resistance shred stays at 30%. So essentially, this is pretty nice. This on paper looks pretty nice. On top of that, with the skill potential, we are getting a cooldown reduction of 2 turns and reduce SP by 2. Essentially, that means that this can cost 2 SP for a cooldown of 3 turns, which is pretty good and will allow you to essentially rotate between this and her other summon costume. Pretty nice. Now, obviously, this one is going to be given for free, which is great, so that's just going to increase our, our damage percentage for the summon, and that's going to be it. Now we're getting some issues fixed, and that's pretty much all. So overall, I'm not sure what to think. I think Morphea is interesting, the damage shred is nice. Not going to talk about the reruns. I think that Levia here has potential. We'll have to see how well we'll be able to apply some stat weakening effects on enemies. And I don't really know what to think about Levia. I feel like she's gonna be able to do some massive amount of burst damage in certain scenarios, but that is very, very costly. Alright, that's gonna be it for me. I hope this was a useful, informative breakdown of the new character kits. And yeah, let me know which character has you the most hyped. Which one are you gonna potentially be using in your teams? Down in the comment, like, subscribe, all the good, and I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers!